Hello and welcome to another Minecraft wallpaper review with me, Anxious Cynic, and beandream. As you can see, we are not in Minecraft. What are we in?
Good question.
A custom app that Bean copy-paste programmed.
Yep, you got it. Everything straight from Stack Overflow. But it's a little app I've been working on to load in the wallpapers and review them.
So if I turn here, dun, dun, there's the wallpapers, and this theme was size swap. So what's big is small, and what's small is big, and we got like how many submissions?
A lot. Haven't counted them yet, but it's like 20 something.
Kind of long, unnecessary introduction, but this is the first time we're doing it in this. Also, the frame rate may be kind of bad because this is poorly optimized and my computer's weak.
Doo-doo programmer.
Yeah, so there was no copy-paste of optimization code, so we're just going to see if this works. First time using it and whatnot, so sorry for any technical issues.
So we have a bit of a criteria. So we have the theme, the lighting, the scenery, the composition, and then the expression or emotion.
So first up is Satinatic.
This one fits the theme, A+ on that. The lighting, I think, is pretty good.
Yeah, this one has
Simple
a very bright
lighting,
and colorful kind of
right.
the Minecraft marketing images you would see.
The scenery, there's some obvious flatlands, like behind Alex there. You could probably add some more like mountains in the background, just with like a little bit of fog would help hide that. The composition of this image, I feel like the pigeon would better if it wasn't there. The pigeon.
The pigeon?
The parrot. Well, yeah, the parrot, because it's kind of like stealing attention from the giant chicken.
Maybe if the parrot was small and kind of following behind Alex back there, it would fit better.
Alex and you seem to be running, but Steve kind of just looks like he's just having a fun walk.
What could have made that work is if there was like a lead from his arm to the chicken.
That would have been pretty cool. This one is by cenapro. Right off, this one has the theme. It definitely has some for size switching and whatever going on.
Yeah, this one's a little bit confusing.
I believe it was kind of meant to be like a action, like it happening in motion of him shrinking down, and he gets like more scared as he shrinks. I believe was the idea behind this one.
One of the things you can use to simulate that is opacity. Like the character that's the most opaque would be the one who's like the present time, and then it gets slowly, gradually faded from there.
The lighting is a little dark.
Yeah, the lighting on this one is
a little flat.
Not good, unfortunately. It's very default lighting, and it's not on the foreground at all. And like there's a torch there that's not lit.
Yeah, scenery is okay. You can't see like flatlands or anything, and it's on a ship. In
terms of scenery, it doesn't seem to have any relevance to the character. The character looks like an ordinary dude. He doesn't look like a pirate or a sailor or anything, so he's just some kind of like normal dude in a t-shirt on a ship, so it kind of just seems randomly put together. Composition seems a little bit boring. There's not much to look at. What I would say about the expression of this image is it's very, like, again, like with the nature of the image being kind of confusing to me, the expression is also that way. Like he looks scared, then like confused, and then happy, I guess. And that's an interesting progression of emotion, but I don't understand which way it's going. Is he getting bigger or getting smaller? And it just doesn't seem to evoke anything. It feels very random. I think he's getting smaller, but it's hard to tell. Changing the opacity or whatever of the first characters would help that. Yeah, you want to pronounce this one? Illgassing. This one definitely has some size swap going on. That's a big pig and a little Steve. So I'm a bit confused as to what I'm looking at here, though. What is the... Is there another character there? Is that Alex holding the carrot on the stick? I didn't even notice Alex back there, but yes, that appears to be what that is. And what is this on the back of the dog? That's a
parrot. It's just flying. It's not on the dog.
That's really weird. Like, there's no sense of like depth of where that parrot is, and using the parrot that's the color, same color as the dog, makes that very confusing.
The camera angle doesn't help either. In terms of lighting, this image just feels like really green or brown for some reason.
Also, everything is cast in shadow. Unfortunately, with Minimator, I'm assuming that's what this was made with, it doesn't really give you that, what's it called, screen space scattering. So you don't get like natural edge lighting and things that make a lighting setup like this actually look good. So it's much better, I think, to position your lighting to be in favor of the camera angle.
The scenery on this one, you can see the edge of the map again. Stuff like fog or just another piece of scenery in the background would help hide that.
Sometimes it can work if the scenery is set up properly so that you don't realize it's the edge, but this definitely looks like it's just a drop off into the abyss.
Composition on this one is really like confusing. It's hard to tell what you're supposed to be looking at.
This feels like the camera should have been in a completely different spot. It's not lined up properly for the lighting. It's not lined up properly for the characters. Like, you can't tell hardly that the parrot is flying or not part of the dog, and Alex is basically an Easter egg. You can't even hardly tell she's there unless you're looking for her.
Yeah, there's two fighting elements. You have Steve and the wolf, and then you have the pig and Alex. I probably would have just stuck to one of them, but they're both like fighting for attention. I mean, aside from Alex. In terms of expression, there's not really much that's happening. You can't see any of the faces of the characters aside from the dog.
Yeah, it almost is intentionally, it seems intentionally done that all the characters are churned in such a way that you can't see their faces, even the parrot. It's like the dog is the only one that has any facial features visible.
Yeah, this one is by blingplays. This one, the theme, I guess there's a giant chicken in the background. Well, a normal sized chicken, and all the characters are tiny, I guess is what's happening here.
Yeah, I remember seeing this one posted, and the obvious criticism here, like up front, besides like any critique of composition, the guy falling apparently on the left side there. You have the obvious clipping bow, the position of the character, the angle and whatnot. Like, maybe he's in mid-fall or something, but since there's no motion blur or anything, you don't really get that. So you need to work on the pose there to imply it better.
If he is even falling, it might just look like he's trying to go over the edge of the block. Yeah, the lighting on this one is kind of simple. It works. It could definitely have a little more contrast and light. I forget what it's called, where there's light like at the corners of where things connect.
Yeah, the lighting is just a bit too harsh in my opinion, and it's a bit too selective. Like, there isn't like an overall lighting to the scene. You just have these kind of spot or point lights in specific locations, which can be cool, but there isn't like an overall artistic cohesive style to the image in order to imply this kind of dramatic lighting. So if you're going for a more natural look, then the lighting needs to be a little softer and a little better positioned.
The scenery is okay. Doesn't show any flatlands or anything.
The only issue I would have with the scenery actually falls back onto the composition, which is it's an odd camera angle. I don't think the camera angle works for this necessarily, at least the way it's being used here. The block there, like the stairs or whatever that is that the guy is with the bow is on, is taking up too much screen space.
Yeah. And
the overall composition, it draws the eye to like the ground between all the characters for me. Like, it looks like the camera wasn't positioned
the ground,
to take
like
this.
You're in the foreground.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ground, just the ground and the stair there that he's laying on takes up like half of the image. For emotion on this one, or expression,
the two characters on the left basically are the confusing ones. Overall, I would say that this one does seem to have the most expression in terms of there's a theme here, and like with the giant chicken, the characters are running from it, and at least one of the other characters seems to be moving in to attack it. So you do get a sense of like urgency, a sense of danger and whatnot that is coming from this. So, and like being able to express that, this one seems to have the most of its own theme coming through.
This one is by boomnights. First off, the theme. It's got a big bunny in the background there. I think that fits the theme pretty good.
Tiny horse.
That is a tiny horse. I really didn't notice. And for the lighting on this one, plenty of lens flares. And there's like a lot of bloom happening, which I'm not too sure about, like in the sky there.
This one definitely has the most dramatic and stylized lighting so far.
There is like a weird shadow behind character on the horse. And I guess it's because of the bloom, I don't know. And the pants have like a blue glow off of them, which is kind of weird. So I think there's like stuff's glowing that shouldn't be. That's what's causing an issue.
Probably.
I'd say the scenery's good. It's got like a background, it's got a foreground, and everything kind of fits in between it pretty nicely.
And the characters in the scene actually fit the scenery. You have like cowboy cynic there on a mini horse and a giant desert rabbit chasing him apparently.
Giant killer bunny.
The addition of like little smoke effects is pretty cool.
Composition on this one's pretty nice. You first focus on the killer bunny, and then you focus on the character and the horse. So it has a nice motion to looking at the image, which I think is good.
Yeah, I think this one is a pretty well composed image. If I had to suggest anything, I would turn the camera a bit more to the left because it's so far to the edge. Like the character on the horse is so far to the edge. It almost looks like it's not really meant to be focused on, but the nature of the overall scene suggests there should be more focus on it. So if the camera was turned a bit to the left where maybe you only had the corner of this foreground block visible, then you'd still, I think, get the weight of the image across with the angle and everything, but also have the subject matter in focus a little bit better.
What you could do is maybe have him off the horse and just the horse is in the corner running away. Because I like the idea of being in the corner. It feels like they're escaping, but it does not leave him enough room to be a main subject. The expression, horse looks terrified. The killer bunny looks mega angry. The only thing I don't know about is character's expression. It's kind of just, I don't know what he's looking at.
The main thing that I noticed with this one, like the horse is great. I like the idea with the rabbit, but I think if it had eyebrows and they looked angry, that would really sell the rabbit. Because as it is, it's kind of a neutral expression, obviously, with Minecraft. But if you added some eyebrows and an angry expression, it would really give you that sense that the rabbit is after them. So next up we have aldashr.
Once again, fits the theme pretty good. Got a giant wolf.
Yes, it's almost like a woolly mammoth scene here.
In terms of lighting, I think the lighting's okay in like general, but it definitely needs some thing on the lighting in the trees. It's okay, but it's a little bland here in the foreground.
Yes, it's a bit of more flat looking lighting, almost, default basically. Once again, another instance of the lighting coming from behind or the side and not being on the foreground subjects here.
Scenery is okay. It doesn't show any flatlands or anything. It doesn't exactly fit, but like it's better than having flatlands.
Yeah, I think the main thing that would help improve this, aside from just with the scenery given, like not changing it entirely, is having foreground elements. Like right now, it just is this clear shot straight at these characters. If you had something in the foreground closer to the camera out of focus, it'll give it more depth and more life. It looks like a contrived scene here.
Which kind of brings us into composition. Having something in the foreground would help with making the center of the image the main focus.
Yes, and the camera seems to be tilted high, which I think works for this, but maybe it's a tad too high. Maybe not necessarily the tilt, but the camera could be positioned a little bit lower to bring that up. Not in the center, but just a little bit further down.
And expression, I'm not sure like if they're trying to ride the wolf or if they're attacking it or what's happening.
Yeah, there's a weird mixture here in terms of expression for me, where you have the wolf, it looks angry. The main character up top seems to be up to something, but we don't know what. Like there's no weapon in his hand. He's not like, he doesn't have a lead or anything to suggest he's trying to like wrangle it. Is that a Ravager on its back?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know what the hell a Ravager would be doing up there. Not that I have an issue with people straying from like what Minecraft as a game is all about, but it's just kind of there. And then the Gollum hanging onto the tail is probably my favorite part, but it comes off as silly. So I don't know if this is like a serious scene or a comedic scene. It just seems to be kind of like random things thrown together to look interesting without any like cohesive theme behind it.
This one is by Archerlegacy.
Is that
Archerlegacy?
Archerlegacy?
It has some side swap. You got a little character. And is he holding a calculator?
I think this is maybe he's a scientist that created like a shrinking device and he shrunk himself and now he's running from the cat. I like the idea there of that take on the theme.
Yeah, there's a little creeper in the back. I mean, a big creeper in the background. Maybe he was trying to grow the cat so the cat can attack the creeper, but shrunk himself instead.
Could be. The creeper, like without having like a very explicit telling of that story, the creeper comes off as an odd addition to me. Like the impression I got upon like first viewing is like he shrunk himself and now his house cat is chasing him and doesn't know that he's not a mouse, it's actually his owner. And then for some reason there's a random creeper peering back because it's Minecraft.
In terms of lighting, pretty flat lighting. There's not much.
Yeah, lighting's not necessarily bad. It's just kind of flat and
yeah, there's not much
uninspired.
to it. The scenery's kind of the same way. It's just like a big room with some doors in the background.
Yeah, I like the indoor take on it, but it is a very like empty scene.
Some stuff in this main room would help fill that out a little bit, especially over on the left side.
That's another thing is in terms of the theme, the fact that the scenery is so bare, like you almost don't get that it's a small Steve or whatever. Like you need other things in the scene to contrast him with. So like a crafting table, whatever, anything that could be in the scene that shows you how small he is in comparison to everything. Because the cat is behind him and you kind of get a sense that maybe it's the depth until you really look at it and realize that his foot's like the size of a pixel.
Composition, there's a lot of empty space off to the sides. So I definitely feel like they should be closer together and zoomed in a little more.
Yeah, I think a more telephoto look to this would help. The composition might have worked better if the scene was more full. Like it's hard to judge it with how empty the space is. So if you wanted to just focus on this, then you definitely need more telephoto to this, zoomed in more and like positioned so that we basically just see Steve the cat, the door, and the creeper behind him, and not all this empty space.
Depth of field always helps with stuff like that.
Yeah, depth of field would help.
Expression, this one I think works fairly good, except for the creeper. Creeper seems like it wouldn't have to be there.
Yeah, expression in this one's good. Character looks reasonably freaked out by what's happening. Cat looks pretty playful.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to eat some breakfast. This one's by enderman. The theme doesn't necessarily feel like a size swap. I think it fits, but it doesn't really focus on the theme.
Yeah, it fits well enough considering that the zombie is giant, but going with this theme, it's hard to say like what would you do to make something smaller that would only be big.
In terms of lighting on this one, it's okay, but it could definitely use some more dramatic lighting. Like it's a little too bright and cheery for what's happening. There should be more shadows in places that are unimportant. Down in the bottom of the valley thing there should be a darker, and it should be like the sun's a little setting, not like middle of day. Just something to make the zombies and guys stand out a little more, because right now they do stand out, but it could be better with more dramatic lighting.
It does look like we have another instance of like a smoke or dust in the image, which is always cool.
Liking all the particles. Pretty cool. Do like the scenery. You got like some really faint mountains in the far background, which is always good. Composition's pretty good. On the left, you got main character, and then on the right thirds, you got big old zombie. Balances it out pretty good.
The only thing to me is the zombie over on the left seems to kind of upset the composition, but I don't know if that's because he's there or because he seems to be lit too well. Like having him off over there and be more cast in shadow might have helped not be like he's sticking out as much.
Expression in this one, a more dramatic lighting would have helped convey like the danger, the epic battle they're about to fight.
But it definitely successfully conveys, in my opinion, what seems to be suggested by the image.
I have no idea who this is because they don't know who they are either, apparently.
It's the guy that doesn't know his name.
This one, I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while to find what was the size swap. And then I realized there was a giant fish behind him. I think this is another case where the characters are pretty small too.
Yeah, you can tell by the pixels of the sand blocks. The characters are small. Fish is either giant or just normal size, and they're small, I guess. The way the scene is composed, it makes it seem like the fish is giant. Lighting seems adequate, a bit flat, it's just kind of default lighting, but at least it's facing so that the foreground is in focus and lit well.
The scenery, it's hard to tell, but like you can kind of see it just ends on the other side of those trees. Once again, stuff like fog would help that. Composition, I don't like that it chops the fish fins off because it makes it hard to see the fish there. So I think zooming out just a little bit to show more of the fish would help.
The composition is the weakest link in this image. It's just too close up.
Yeah.
The fact that the characters are small. Now this could be done. Like you can put the characters close to the camera and they're small, and you kind of have to search the image to realize that they're tiny and everything, and that can be like a strength to the image. But for this one, it seems to be a weakness. Like it's confusing at first until you realize, oh, they're small and the camera's just right on them.
And then expression on this one, they look kind of scared and running away.
Yeah, this is another kind of mixture of like goofy and terrified at the same time.
But it's kind of hard to do with just like Minecraft characters without like face rigs and stuff. This one is by Den. This one definitely has some size swap happening. I do like the little guy in the background throwing a splash potion, I assume.
Yeah, it definitely seems like this one pretty clearly illustrates the theme. You can tell that guy is very small and the chickens are very big.
Yeah, I believe the guy up front is normal. The chickens have orange particles, so they're bigger, and then red or pink particles make it smaller.
Ah, nice little detail there.
And it looks like he's trying to get the guy that's running away with the splash potion to shrink him. It appears he is also holding seeds, so he's like the chicken master.
So they're not man-eating chickens, you're saying?
Yeah.
0 out of 10.
The lighting on this one's pretty good.
Yeah, I like the way the shadows are cast in this one. It's
Yeah.
adequate lighting on the subjects. It's a bit bright, like with the grass on the bottom layer of grass. Like there's no ambient occlusion or anything on the edge of the dirt and the grass, so it kind of gives it a bit of a flat look. But besides that, I think the lighting looks pretty good.
Scenery works pretty well, I'd say.
It's a bit plain, but I think due to the size swap nature of the theme and how it was executed, the scenery is definitely adequate.
Composition's okay. Got everything on like the thirds.
Yeah, composition looks pretty good. Once again, I think this is one that could have been benefited by tilting the camera up a tad.
And some depth of field would be nice. Expression, I think, is pretty good. You got the guy in the background who is a little dude. He's on a war rampage, shrinking everybody. And the guy on the right is just running for his life.
That's the only thing I would say. Again, like this is Minecraft using default textures. The character who's running up front doesn't seem to have an expression of being terrified or anything, and that would have really helped. Like, because I don't know if this is like an insidious thing that's happening, or they're playing a game of some kind or whatever. It's just like it's just you see what it is, and I think the chickens and the guy in the back are great, but the guy up front should have some kind of expression to tell the viewer what is happening. Like if he looks happy and he's smiling, it's like, okay, this is some kind of game and he's happy he's getting away or trying to get away. If he looks terrified, then it's like, oh, they're after him.
This one's by Moo Bloom, and it's got lots of distortion.
This is a bit much.
I say there's not enough distortion. Needs some more. Theme, I don't really see any size swap other than maybe the pigeon.
You keep saying pigeon.
Maybe the parrot is big, but you really can't tell because of the distortion and it's closer to the camera.
Yeah, the only thing that gives that indication is the cookie being small, but like that doesn't really tell me anything.
So I don't know how well this one follows the theme.
Yeah, being that this one is very questionable in terms of its following the theme, I'm just going to kind of speed run and say the bloom looks okay, scenery looks decent, but it's so distorted that's kind of cheaty to say the scenery is good. Composition is odd, like we're not getting anything from this. It's just you see what's presented. It doesn't, like with the distortion and everything, it's not really catching my eye and telling me anything about the scene. And the expression is non-existent. Like I have no idea what's going on here. It seems like random elements altogether.
Cookie.
Yeah, it's just the cookie is pretty much the main subject here.
Steve is just staring into the sun.
Wind
This one is
2.0.
by Wind 2.0. So this one, you got really small characters and normal sized cats, I believe. The lighting on this one is okay.
Adequate.
A little bland again, but yep. The scenery, however, most of it's just a dirt wall, which isn't very exciting.
Yeah, very boring
Although I
scenery.
do like the character from up top just jumping down. Composition is kind of all over the place.
I feel like the scenery
Phases.
really takes away from the composition here. If you had like a giant cat sitting there
Yeah.
instead of a dirt wall, then the composition would be awesome. Having the camera way down, you can tell that the characters are small, unlike the one before where I talked about this, and it's kind of tilted up from behind them, so you get this idea that there's little tiny guys, and they're coming up to this massive cat, or something like that would have been much better than a dirt wall with a random cat up on top of it.
Expression on this one, I'm not sure. The guys in the foreground are attacking the cats, or are they attacking the guys riding the cats? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it seems to be implied that they are going in on an attack, but there's nothing else to support that hypothesis.
So it's a little confusing as to what is for sure happening. This one is by It's Blue Fin Dude. This one has the theme, has a giant parrot. It looks like tiny characters.
It is a bit tricky, it's kind of hard to tell, but I
This
do
one-
think they are small.
This one, the lighting kind of works, even though it's showing from the back because of the rim lighting that is there.
Yeah, I think
But
he
I
may
do
have turned
think
light
the-
bleed on or something, and it gives it the little bit of rim light, which
Yeah.
it helps. It's not perfect, again, it's my animator, and you probably would need to add some point lights to brighten up the shadows a bit in the foreground or something, but it still gives you the sense of what you're going for. So I would say it's more or less a successful use of that kind of lighting.
I think there should be a little bit of lighting on the parrot's face.
Yeah,
Scenery is okay because of fog, but over on the right, behind the grass, it looks like it just cuts off. Some trees back there would help hide the edge of the flatlands.
right.
Composition works pretty good. I would say that maybe you don't want to cut the top of the parrot off, but it almost makes it feel bigger. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think what I would have tried to do with this one is maybe even go a bit wider on the FOV for the camera, place it a little bit lower and looking up at it so we get a sense of the scale of the characters and the parrot a little bit better.
Expression on this one, there isn't much other than there's really just a bird there.
Something that would have helped and also added to the lighting is if Steve was maybe holding a torch in his right hand and holding it up, so you could add a point light there that would help brighten up the parrot's face a bit, give it a bit more prominence in the scene, and add a bit more action on the part of the human characters, almost as if they kind of came across this and they're looking at it.
Yeah, they stumbled across a giant parrot
Or pigeon.
or pigeon. This one we have another creative name.
I wonder if
Unnamed.
if unnamed and I don't know my name are related.
Maybe. This one has a whole bunch of pigeons.
They must have some McDonald's French fries in there.
So size swap, it's got the theme going, got some small characters and a really big bat in the background. I do almost think the bat in the background shouldn't be there. I think the phantoms by themselves would be better.
Yeah, I agree. The bat seems to be a bit out of place.
In terms of lighting, the green on the eyes is glowing, which I kind of like.
Yeah, I think the lighting works. The main thing for me, somewhat of a small detail, but the background, way off in the distance where the fog starts, if the fog was a darker color, so it kind of fades into darkness and you just see the red sky in the foreground there, and most of the lighting is inside the structure, would have been more dramatic and interesting.
The scenery on this one, it works because where you can see out of the house, there is trees and stuff, and everything else you can't see out of the house. I will say the house is a little empty, aside from the chest and the crafting table.
It is a bit confusing in terms of the theme and the scenery, where these characters are tiny inside of a normal sized house, and there are small blocks that are suitable to their size as well, so like that's a little bit confusing.
Composition of this one works pretty good. except for the character on the right. He seems way too far in the corner. It's kind of hard to notice him.
If the character on the right was laying on the floor like he got hurt, I think it would work a little bit better as kind of a little detail off in the corner, but him being animated presence in the scene kind of makes him feel like an
part of the action.
Yeah. Something to note there, I think it's either an issue with the glow or my animators attempted ambient occlusion, but there's like a weird outline around Steve.
In terms of expression, I think it works pretty good. They're being attacked by phantoms and they're terrified.
Yeah, it gives you a sense that there's a world out there full of these dangerous creatures. The main thing is the character on the side there. His pose is kind of odd, so having him be, like I said, more consistent with the scenery and the action going on in the scene, which is if he was laid out on the floor like he got hit, or if he was in like an attack position like he's trying to fight back, it would have been a lot better than this kind of random borderline T-pose.
This one's by walbycreeper 2. Size swap on this one, I'm not sure what's happening.
It does appear to be a tiny Steve, but
the giant trident in chest, I don't know.
Yeah, it's very hard to tell due to the distance of items, whether they're supposed to be big or small or normal.
The lighting in this one's okay.
It's flat, but is adequate to see what's going on.
It does its job. The scenery is a little confusing. I'm not sure why there's just a Minecraft text on the wall. The chest is exploding or something, and I'm not sure why Steve is just flying. Well, the composition, I don't like that in the top right you can see the furnace. Just a little sliver of a furnace for no reason. And on the left there's just a lot of empty space.
Yes, the camera should have been turned more to the right.
Should have focused more on the chest and what was happening.
There's also an issue of the trident is going through the latch on the chest.
An expression, once again, I'm not really sure what's happening.
Yeah, this
like,
one
is the chest
has very little
exploding
expression
open,
at
or-
all.
This one is by Alpha Red. I'm not entirely sure that this fits with that. Like, these phantoms could be big, but it's hard to tell being they're close.
Yeah, this could have just been a camera angle thing, like where they were so close to the foreground they look big.
I will say this scene looks kind of cool.
Yeah, I really like the idea of this one. It looks very cool.
It feels like a Disney movie intro or something. But lighting, it's a little dark, but it kind of works. I don't like that all the flowers in the bottom there are glowing.
Oh yeah.
Whereas some other stuff isn't.
I do like how the lighting is centralized to the little village and that the phantoms are darkened because they're not close to it, but visually speaking I think they needed to be a little bit brighter so that they can be seen, because like at first looking at this image I'm like, is there something there? Like I'm trying to kind of map out what I'm picking up on.
In terms of scenery, there's some obvious ends to the schematic. You can always just use some fog or just fade it to black somehow.
Yeah, the fact that it's nighttime really
it.
gives you some options in that regard. Having more fog would easily cover it up.
In terms of composition, I think it works pretty good.
Yeah.
Maybe a little less from the right side could be taken off. It feels a little like there should be something back in there. Well, it feels like it should just be chopped off.
Yeah, agreed.
Because right now the village is kind of off to the left of the image. I think centering that would help it a little bit. In terms of an expression in this one, it really feels like a story that's about to happen. So
Yeah, I agree. There's not much to really give a direct expression, but it gives you definitely a feel and like a story and something's happening. So
yeah,
I think
it feels like the
definitely,
phantoms
does
are
that.
on their way with a purpose.
Yeah, like there's a purpose there. They're doing something. Something's happening. So they're, even though like there's nothing there to give you a direct expression or emotion, it does accomplish it still.
This one here is by Toriel. Got giant chickens and giant pigs and a giant bunny by the looks of it.
Cow.
And a giant cow. Man, I'm finding more and more and more. Look at this. The lighting is way too dark because it took me forever to see those things. There needs to be more like highlights on the rest of the characters like there is with the chicken. I do like how the lighting looks on the chicken, but you need to replicate that onto the rest of the characters as well.
I like the dramatic lighting. I like the edge lighting on the clouds up there and everything. It has a very smooth and polished look, but it is a bit too dark, and I don't understand why the lighting on the chicken is red. I'm assuming that it's supposed to be like a kind of a sunset color lighting on it.
Yeah, Except that the moon's already way up there. The scenery on this one, it works because it's dark enough that you can't see anything in the background.
Yeah, if you're including the clouds as part of the scenery and everything, I think this one, for what is presented, knocks it out of the park. Like it all looks like it belongs.
Composition, it's okay. The Steve on the right is getting a little crowded. I definitely think you could have moved it over, but you still kind of want the chicken in the center, so it's a little hard to say on that. I probably would have just moved the character on the right over.
Yeah, I think you probably could have moved the camera more to the right and then turned it to the left, but I understand you're trying not to obscure the pig, so that is a bit of a challenge there.
The Steve on the right, I probably would have tried sticking him more in between like the chicken and the pig instead of covering the pig's face. And then you could have left that side blank to make it feel less crowded. In terms of expression, it's hard to tell because it's how dark it is, and it looks like they're just kind of poking the chicken, and the chicken really doesn't care.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that guy there. So many details, but it's so dark, they're really difficult to point out. And I like the fact that it's dark, like I like the moonlight aspect of it, but it's just a bit too dark. Like if there was a little bit more ambient light, then it would work much better. Maybe more torches. If all the characters were holding torches like the Steve in the foreground, that would have helped. But in terms of expression, besides the guy poking, which Bean just pointed out, I don't really get anything from this. I don't know what's happening, what the scenario is. I don't know. I'm kind of neutral on the expression of this. It's not bad. I get there's something there, but it doesn't really speak to me either.
Next one, we have one by burrbreath.
Or as he will forever be known as the kid who talked too much about getting over it.
This one, size swap. We got a little goat there.
Yeah, I like the take on the theme with this one. Like he's got, I'm assuming it's like a real goat that's been shrunken down, not like an ornament. And I like the look of it. Most of the credit, I guess, probably goes to the goat texture, but it has a really cool organic look, and the posing, it seems pretty good in that regard.
Yeah, the posing's pretty good. The lighting, it's a little flat. I think Steve's face should have more glow from the candle that's there in the corner.
Yeah, I agree.
Would definitely help with that, but otherwise it works. It just could be a little more like the candlelight. It would be a lot harsher of the light.
Yeah, I think lighting up the face a little bit more. Mostly the front of the face, the side can be darker because it's such a singular, like small light source. It wouldn't be bad to have there be more drop off, but the face itself needs to be boosted a little bit.
The scenery in this works, although it is a little hard to tell what everything is. Composition, there's a bit too much chopped off from the right hand side. Zoomed it out just a little bit more would have helped.
At the very least, turning it more to the right.
In terms of expression, I'm not sure if the Steve is going to go eat the goat now or...
Yeah, the expression on his face is confusing to me. Like the mouth shape is kind of odd. His eyes being, or his pupils being small, it makes it look like he's scared. To me, like this would have...
Well, they're not the same size. The one
they're also different sizes, but I think if his pupils were actually big, they would make more sense and be interesting. Like, you know, your eyes widen, like your pupils get big, like what is this? And you're kind of enamored by it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's like happy or if he's surprised or...
The expression on the goat's pretty good, though. He just looks like an innocent goat that doesn't know what the hell's happening. And this one is by jakeandmason.
I'm not sure that it really fits that theme.
Yeah, being that it's kind of in the blackness of the universe of space, it's hard to tell. There's nothing to compare the scale with. So it's like a giant Steve in Little Earth, or it could be a normal Steve in a tinier Little Earth. Don't know.
But I feel like this could probably fit better with like a different theme rather than size swap.
Yeah, it's a cool image.
It's an interesting take on it too. I think the lighting's pretty good. I don't know what's glowing other than some kind of superpower or something.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing in terms of the light source on this. I like the idea. I like the kind of artistic take on it, but having, like, this would be more trouble to make this, but if he was actually holding the entire solar system, like if you had a little sun and other planets around and stuff, it would be more interesting, and it would give you little things to work with to suggest the lighting is coming from them.
In terms of scenery, there is none.
The Little Earth looks cool, but there's obvious cutoffs on it where The scenery
and
was taken out of Minecraft.
pond doesn't line up, which bothers me.
Yeah, the water doesn't match
Rotating them the other direction to line them all up would have been better. Composition, I think it works okay, but once again, you're chopping the earth off a little bit. Just giving it a little bit of space on the right hand would help it a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that in this image, the tiny earth is your selling point. That's your main subject. And as it is, it's kind of composed to feature Steve more. And it's like nobody cares what a normal Minecraft Steve looks like when he's holding a 3D tiny earth. So panning it over, maybe zooming in a bit more, cutting off at least half of his right arm to focus more on the earth would have worked a lot better.
Expression, there really isn't much. It's hard to tell if he's like, what he's up to.
The pretty expressionless, given the nature of the image. There's nothing to really pull from it. There's no story being told here or anything. Again, interesting to look at if like as an abstract art perspective, but as far as any storytelling or anything to be taken from the scene, it would be entirely subjective and there's nothing really conveyed.
This one is by the medicmeister.
Medicmeister, medic pigeon.
The medic pigeon. This one follows the theme. It's got a giant creepy dude in the background. I do approve. The lighting in itself is kind of good. I think it's kind of in a tie-in with the scenery is kind of bland, which would have helped the lighting a little better.
The lighting is good in terms of creating the effect, but it's bad because it's contrived lighting. There's nothing in the scene to suggest it should be lit this way.
So it's kind of like the two have to work together a little better, and right now it doesn't.
Yeah, this is lighting for the sake
work.
of achieving the effect, and it has no place in the scenery. You can have this empty scene, like, maybe they're in an Egyptian tunnel or something like that, or tomb, but the sandstone on the sides and everything is way too repetitious. You needed to have other types of sandstone blocks in there to mix it up, maybe even the same for the ground, and that would have given it more
holes
character.
And whatever.
Yeah,
Needs some more depth
flatness
to it, basically. Composition, not too bad. The character, the closest to him, feels a little like he's not the main focus, but he's at the main point of action, so it's a little fighting for some action a little bit there.
The composition on this one's a little difficult for me to judge because of what's being presented. Like, for one thing, you have duplicate Steves, so just based on what I'm seeing here would have helped this is the Steve in the foreground here was actually like, say, a zombie husk or something. You zoom in a bit more with the camera, so he's out of focus, but you see that there's some kind of discolored figure there. The Steve in the middle would be our primary subject looking up at whatever the silhouetted creature is. So you get a very good sense of danger from the foreground and the background.
Yeah, the other thing that would have helped, I think, is depth of field to where the creature in the background's a little blurry and harder to
Yes, that would have gone a long way to
make
help
out, but
give it some creepy atmosphere.
and like some fog and dust could be cool. In terms of expression, it's pretty creepy, but the Steve in the foreground kind of breaks a little bit because he's just kind of standing there. Here we have one by Brickabang. It's kind of a unique take on it.
Yeah, this is an interesting concept.
Yeah, I don't know how well it follows the theme. It's hard to tell that this would imply size swap.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get giant creeper, little scenery or whatever, but there's nothing that like brings them together. It's more of just a set piece.
Bit of a more abstract.
This is basically the same thing as the little earth one.
Yeah, kind of. In terms of lighting's pretty good.
It's hard to judge the lighting because it's just a blue background, but as far as the lighting on the scenery, even though it's very small, seems to be adequate. The lighting on the creeper is pretty good. It's got like kind of a dramatic vibe, but there's not enough darkness in the shadows and contrast on the creeper to give it quite the dramatic vibe that it seems like it could have benefited from.
The scenery, I feel like there needs to be something in all the blue area. It's just a little too blue around it.
Yeah, I think if you had added clouds above, I don't know exactly how you would position it, but imply clouds right above the little scenery would have helped kind of complete the idea of a little world there.
The composition, the top of it is a little too high up on the image. It needs to be like a view from up above higher, I believe.
I like the composition, but it is a little bit creeper heavy and not so much on that.
Yeah.
So it's like you're trying to get both, which obviously you're trying to do, but it's like You unfortunately would have to sacrifice some of the scenery and just focus more on the creeper, or sacrifice more of the creeper and focus a little bit more on the scenery.
And expression.
There really isn't anything to
Doesn't-
express
yeah.
here. It's just like the earth one, it's more of just like a artistic, abstract kind of set piece.
So this one here wins. All right, on.
Alright, so this one was by Beandream. As for the theme, disqualified. Next.
For theme, disqualified. As for the lighting, disqualified. As for the
This is interesting in terms of like the Steve is big but his head is small and the pickaxe is small, so this is definitely a more creative take on the size swap thing. Like you didn't use different mobs or whatever. It's like imagining a giant Steve trying to mine with a normal size pickaxe is pretty terrifying. But I guess, you know, since you made this one, you can't really critique it, so I'll just give a brief run through of my own. I think it was probably put together as a little bit more of a joke than an honest submission, but I still like the idea behind it, and if it was going to be something taken seriously, then I think adding a little bit more to the scenery. There is a little pig there, which is cool.
yeah, added a pig.
But maybe something flying, some pigeons.
Ooh, that
Or
could've
some
been cool.
phantoms
yeah,
or
I should add
something.
some pigeons.
Kind of like a King Kong scenario where they're flying around
Yeah.
and he's swatting at them. Something like that would have helped. Lighting seems pretty good and adequate. Over edited as usual, which is your style, but
Yep.
still looks pretty good. I think it's a bit heavy on the reds to me. Feels a little bit more orange on the grass. The dirt blocks and stuff, it would have looked a little better. Kind of give you that orange and teal contrast that everyone goes for. Composition is pretty good. Seems to make the giant Steve look giant and the scenery look properly scaled against them. As far as expression goes, I'd say it successfully conveys the derpiness of Minecraft Steve. So the expression is definitely a potent portrayal of Steve's derpiness.
Very potent derp.
Potent derp. Hey, that's a good username.
Hey, there you go. The two people that didn't have a name yet. Everyone by a cute Eagle 95.
This one has a lot going on.
It appears there's another goat in this one. Although this one looks a lot less flattering.
Yeah, this goat looks like the other one's retarded cousin.
Right. On the lighting. The lighting, I'm not sure what's happening. Like, what is the glowy thing in the background?
Yeah, that's really confusing. Like I thought on first impression that's the sun, but due to the crazy nature of this scene, it makes me wonder if it's like a giant eyeball. But the foreground doesn't look that good. The background elements look pretty good, but everything from the giant fish towards the camera is very kind of bland and flatly lit.
Feels like you had a point light or a spotlight shining on the background, but not on the foreground.
Yeah, and the wither
Or
is
there
a
was
bit
like
too
some
dark.
mountains behind the camera that's covering everything.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not sure, is that gas pulling the fish out of the water? Or is it just in the background?
Yeah, that's hard to tell. That's the trouble with the lack of depth perception and with the nature of these images without depth of field and whatnot. Like, I don't know if that's a tiny gas and the fish is jumping up and eating him, or if he's further in the background.
The scenery on this one, you can see where it ends, basically. There's not like any fog or anything to hide it. But otherwise, the scenery would work.
This almost looks like if you had like a Lego set and just created like a little scene.
Yeah.
So in that regard, the scenery would work. It makes sense that it's a artificially created artistic expression of a scene. But if it's supposed to be something relatively natural, then yeah, the scenery kind of cuts off and looks completely separate from the sky.
Composition, there's just a bit too much happening, and there's not like a main focus to this.
Yeah,
other
it's a
than,
very
like, the
chaotic
squid
shot.
or dog, and the expression is chaos. Like a bunch of stuff is happening.
Yeah, the expression is basically non-existent. You also have a very glaring clipping of the glow squid and the regular squid, it looks like. His tentacles are going into the head of the other one, which I guess, you know, he looks like he's having his brain scrambled by the way his eyes look, so maybe that was intentional. Last but not least,
We have Erlen. It's got like the earth in a tiny little jar and the moon beside it.
this is an interesting concept, very similar to, it's kind of a blend of intermittents and unfortunately I can't remember the name, but the earth one. The earth in this one definitely lacks the three-dimensional nature of the scenery that the other one used, but it's a more accurate depiction in terms of how the layout of the land masses in the ocean are. Even
I
has
do like-
clouds.
Yeah, I do like the clouds.
And the addition of the moon there, and it's also in its own separate jar. It's very cool.
Yeah, lighting in this one. Got some nice like blue and orange.
Yeah, you got the kind of orange and teal contrasting happening, very good. This scene, to a certain degree, makes it easy to do lighting because your obvious light sources are right there in the shot. But as far as ambient lighting goes, this is probably about as good as you could hope for in terms of lighting of a scene like this. It all seems pretty well done, and there's enough lighting for the detail in the background without it being overpowering and imposing itself on the foreground here. Everything seems really well done and well balanced. And you even have the orange lighting from the light on the glass, which was it's a pretty cool effect to accomplish there.
The scenery, pretty good with how everything's working together. The composition is pretty good. The expression on it, there's not much of being able to tell what's happening, though.
It kind of reminds me of Portal in style, and the lamp from the Pixar logo.
That's basically, yeah, pretty much how I would say it too. But it does feel like it needs something in the background or something that's like ominous or suspicious looking, just to give it a little bit of story.
Yeah, what I think would have maybe helped to kind of... I'm getting like a laboratory kind of vibes from this for whatever reason. What I think is on the left side here between the lamp and the jar, you can see a little bit of stuff happening. If you had something that was glowing green back there, like a creature in a jar or something, to suggest that this is like something that's happening to all manner of things, then it would have really sold it. I understand maybe that would have been distracting, so you maybe don't want to do that and take away from the foreground, so that's kind of a tough thing to balance, but something back there I think would have gave a little clue to more happening and increased any kind of expression of the scene.
Alright, well that's all of them.
Well, my apologies guys, we missed a submission in this original recording, so I'm going back now to do it. This one is by Kiko, so I'm just going to do a brief little solo review of this image to make sure we don't miss any. I actually like this one quite a bit. It's got a nice pleasing look to it overall. It seems to fit the theme. Yet again, we have a giant chicken. Looks like a giant egg item. It's hard to tell because it doesn't really seem like there's much depth of field, but it looks like the wither back there is tiny, considering that he looks small and he's also looking up like even the wither is terrified of this giant chicken. In any case, the scenery seems pretty good. I don't really know where they're supposed to be. Could be my lack of Minecraft knowledge. Lighting seems to be pretty adequate. I like that the chicken is kind of backlit, so it's got an interesting look to it, but I think the foreground needs a bit more lighting. It's more or less just kind of flat and almost shadowed. There is the shadow of the bars on top of the chicken, so that's a nice little detail, but in terms of lighting on the subjects, it seems like there's more lighting in the background than in the foreground, and I don't know, it looks good, but it's also kind of distracting. Yeah, that looks more interesting than what's going on in the front here. Composition doesn't seem too bad to me. It's just like the anxious character over there on the left seems a little bit unbalanced to me, as like most of the action is kind of happening on the right 2/3, so he's kind of just off over there. So I think maybe including that as an Easter egg in the background, maybe turning the camera a little bit to the right or shifting the stuff in the middle into the right 2/3 a little bit more to the left, something like that to balance out the image a bit. I kind of get the balance of him being there, kind of filling up the whole frame, but it just seems to be, like I said, just a little bit of a distraction or something. He doesn't really have a lot going on over there. Most of the action just seems to be over there, especially with the way the scene is lit. In terms of expression, it seems pretty good. I'm assuming my character looks confused and oblivious to what's going on, which I'd say is a pretty realistic depiction of my natural state of mind during moments like these. So yeah, overall, pretty cool image, and I like the expression. It's got, the angry looking chicken and the guy running for his life and do not enter and everything. It tells a little bit of a story, so yeah, good job. Okay, Bean, so after over 10 minutes of deliberation, we went over this and over this. This was a tough one, not because Not just because there was a ton of submissions, but because there was so many different things. Like, we're trying to figure out what to judge these on, whether it's the quality of the image, how much it stuck to the theme, etc. And we really think that the theme has to be the priority here, and then quality comes next, because we don't want people winning just for making a pretty image. It has to be on theme. And with that, we've come up with third place.
Third place is unnamed.
Unnamed gets third place, and this is with a huge caveat in my opinion, which is the bat. The bat needs to go.
Yeah.
If the bat was gone, then this is easy third place, but this was a bit of a controversial one, just because of that damn bat, and I don't know why, but it sucks.
Second place is Den.
I didn't have the camera set up properly for that reveal, but it works anyway. So Den gets second place. We think that overall this probably fits the theme the best, and executes the theme the best.
Yeah, it matches the theme spot on.
Adequate lighting, all that stuff going for it. So Den's gonna take second.
For first place, drum roll please.
Winner is
Boomnights. Yay.
Boomnights.
Giant killer bunny. And a scared little horse.
Yeah, the horse takes the cake here. He's got the dust elements. He's got the giant rabbit. If the eyes were a little bit more, like a laser beam look or something with the angry eyebrows, I think it would have worked better. But having both elements, the size swap, what's big is small and what's small is big, is represented here with those elements. So we think Boomnights will take it, and partly due to Bean's obsession with over-edited images.
It's just fun to look at, alright?
Alright, and with that said, we have 2 honorable mentions. So these, we didn't feel fit the theme well enough, unfortunately, even though we really like the quality and the idea behind them. But yeah, because they were really so well executed.
Alpha Red, a fun image, but there's almost no way to tell that it's size swap. And another honorable mention is Ireland.
Erlen. Now, to be completely candid about this, we both agree that this one is probably the highest quality, technically proficient image that we got submitted here.
Yeah, it's really nice looking.
This is a very pretty image to look at. If it was a different theme, then this probably would have taken number 1. But because of the theme being size swap, a lot of people seem to kind of go with something's really big or something's really small, but the idea is to include both things. Something that would be small is actually big. Something that's big is now small. And this one basically, just like other ones, only did one thing, which is take something big and make it small. So that's why it didn't make it into the runnings, but we really liked it and wanted to showcase it regardless. So with that said, not much to look at here, with Bean just being a square, a cube, but that's it for this competition. Let us know what you think, even though no one's watching at this point, about the new app here and the way we showcase the images. And I can't wait to hear how much people disagree with our choices.
Yep.
What can people do that aren't watching right now if they want to submit for the future?
Well, what you want to do is go down to the comments and type, "How can I submit?" Instead of going down to the description where there's a Discord link that you can click on.
Yeah, that should do it. You join the Discord and then ask in the Discord how to submit.
It's a step in the right direction.
And with that, I think we're out of here. That took way too long. This video is going to be way too long. That's why nobody's watching now. For the one person who has this on while they went to the bathroom, thanks for sticking around. And we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, bye.